Hello everyone, I'm your host Ingrid Thompson and welcome to So You Want to Start a Business episode number 87. Hold onto your earbuds as you listen in to my conversation with Dylan Mullen. He had no experience running an online business. He wasn't experienced in the beauty industry. A bit over a year ago, he set about to disrupt the laser hair removal industry, and that is exactly what he's doing with Happy Skin Co.
That stock we ordered 110 units, our first batch. 10 of them were set aside to send out for marketing purposes, and the other 100 we wanted to sell. We didn't know if it would take a week, if it would take a month, if it would take a year, and we ended up selling that first batch within the first 3 or 4 days.
Those first 100 products have gone on to be thousands, as this business has generated, listen to it, more than $12 million in sales before their first birthday. I'm not going to say any more about this interview except pay attention. There is so much gold from Dylan. You are going to love this episode. As always, there's no advertising on this podcast. Well, apart from me and my book, and of course the guest who promotes their business just by being here. This episode is brought to you by my book with the same name as the podcast, So You Want to Start a Business. Head over to wherever you buy your books online for the physical book or a Kindle. Go now, get your copy. For those who like to listen, the full audio version is being made available through the podcast. Cycle back through the episodes. If you prefer to read, want an extract, try before you buy, head to www.thestartupsteps.com where there are about 20 pages waiting for you. Anyway, enough from me. Let's listen to what Dylan has to say about starting and running his own business and so much more. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, and here we are today with Dylan Mullen. Hello, Dylan.
Hi, Ingrid. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Thank you so much for taking time out, and I know you've really relocated in order to be on this call, in this interview. Dylan, where are you right now?
Yes, so we're based in Sydney. I have relocated for the day. We had a lot going on in the office at the moment, so I thought I might get a little bit more peace and quiet if I just stuck away to home. Luckily, I only live 5 minutes away from the office, which is convenient, but I thought I'll go somewhere where there's going to be less distractions and less background noise so we can have a little bit of a better conversation.
Nice. So you and I are actually both in Sydney, where it is a stunning autumn morning, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's getting a little bit harder to get out of bed in the mornings with the cold, but the sun is shining today, so it's not too bad.
Yeah, and it's warm. It is. All right, Dylan, let's get to what is this business of yours? What is your business?
Yep. So my business is called Happy Skin Co. Essentially, what we offer is an at-home IPL laser hair removal handset. Works in exactly the same type of way that any laser hair removal IPL would work in a clinic. It's just done in a nice little compact at-home kit, essentially.
Fantastic. And when did you get started?
We're still a baby. We just went past 13 months, so we launched last year. So April 2018, we launched. Mm-hmm. So obviously things have happened pretty quickly for us. It started just 2 of us working out of our home, and now we have a team of 12, and we're growing all the time, which is crazy.
Wow, if you do the maths on that, 13 months and a team of 12, that's one person every month, just about, isn't it?
Yeah, just about. And we just hired 2 more people last week as well, so it doesn't seem like it's going to stop or slow down anytime soon.
No, and from what we were talking about in the pre-chat before, it's not slowing down. So
No.
Dylan, tell us, because the listening audience have got ideas for businesses and, this is who we're talking to. Why did you start this business?
There was a few reasons, I suppose, on a personal level. Why did I want to get into business? I suppose, and I know it's going to sound cliche, but I really always, from a very young age, wanted to live life on my own terms. I feel like too many people get stuck in the habit of, going to school, then going to uni, getting a degree, and then working a job or a 9-to-5 that they don't necessarily like for their entire lives. And I knew that I couldn't do it. I went to uni after school. I was studying law. I lasted about 6 months and I dropped out, and I planned to go back and I never did. I just knew I had to do it my own way.
So you've sort of answered this, but this is a little bit different. What did you want the business to give you from day one?
Well, yeah, look, there was a few different things I knew. So I knew we wanted to do something that hadn't been done before. So in terms of business, we wanted to do something fresh. We wanted to make an impact. We wanted to do something exciting. But again, just in terms of the most simple personal goal that we had for the first year, all I wanted to achieve in the first year of business was to be getting to a position where I can quit my full-time job and work on this full-time. Obviously in a year, we ended up doing over 12 million in sales, which is crazy. And we have 12 staff. So after 2 weeks after we launched, we had to go full-time. That was it. That was done. So that goal was ticked off in 2 weeks.
Dylan, so let's just go back to that. So you started the business 13 months ago. You were working in a full-time job. 2 weeks into running the business, you realised that you needed to dedicate your full-time to it. 13 months later, your revenue is $12 million.
Yeah, well, 12 million happened within the first 12 months. I think we're a little bit over 13 now, so we're going well. But it is a little bit mind-boggling to think about it like that, for sure.
It sure is. So with that story, this is one of my absolute favourite questions in the interview, is when did it feel like you were actually in business? When did it become real? So when was that?
To be honest, I don't think there was one single moment. There was a few moments that kind of build upon each other. And at each point you kind of stop and think, wow, okay, this is getting real. I suppose the first one was quitting. When we quit our jobs, that was a big one. I'm like, okay, now I'm going to have to pay myself. If we don't make any money, I'm going to not be able to pay myself. So that was a big moment. About a month after we quit our jobs, we got our office and warehouse. So that was another moment where we're like, wow, okay, there's another thing that just happened. And then when we brought on our first full-time employee, which was probably about 3 or 4 months after we launched, that felt real. And to be honest, I don't really stop and think about it too much because everything's happening so quickly. It's just, if I stop and I look back, I'm like, wow, okay. It just became real, and I didn't realize. Like, it didn't hit me all in one go. I just look back and I think, okay, we're here now. Now this is life.
So, how did you know that people wanted this? You know, clearly it's working. You know, this HomeKit laser hair removal. How did you know that that's what the market was looking for?
Well, so we did a bit of research. I was speaking to mainly girls around my age, so anyone between 20 and 30, and literally over 95% of girls I was speaking to were either currently doing laser hair removal in a clinic, or they had done it in the past and had stopped doing their sessions, either because it was too expensive, or they didn't have time, or they were just too lazy to keep booking appointments. And then we thought, look, what does everyone wish they had more of? More time and money. So you never know when you put a product to the market if it's going to be successful. You can have a pretty good feeling of, I think this is going to fit and I think people are going to respond. They obviously have. I'd be lying if I said I knew it would happen this quickly. But yeah, we just thought we had a really good concept. A lot of businesses that are successful these days are all about bringing more convenience to the market. So that's where we ran with. And obviously it stuck. So
it sure did. $12 million worth and counting. I'm just curious, is that a topic of discussion that you would have been having very often, or did you, once you twigged to it, did you actually deliberately go out and ask girls and women about this?
Yeah.
Because you're a boy
No, it wasn't a discussion that just came up a lot. I knew we wanted to be in the beauty industry. Obviously, it's a market that you can have a lot of impact in. And it didn't take long, probably about a month. We were doing a little bit of research, looking into what type of products we'd be able to bring to the market that hadn't been done before. And I actually, my friend who we started the business with actually saw an ad of like some weird shaver machine that had a light on it. Nothing like what our product actually is. And that started the conversation on, okay, is it possible? Can we actually build an at-home like laser hair removal handset? Does this technology exist? Would we have to make it ourselves? Are there people manufacturing it that we can get to customize it for ourselves. And we went down that path, and it was possible. And we tested a lot of manufacturers. We worked with a lot of different companies. We tried a lot of different models until we found someone that could produce a handset that was going to deliver the results we wanted, that was going to be able to last the amount of time that it does. So our handsets have 300,000 flashes. So if you use it continuously, that'll last you about 10 years or more. So that's how we got to where the product was today. Pretty
amazing. So obviously you've got money now, but this, going out and talking to manufacturers and getting prototypes and considering building it yourself, and then, leasing a warehouse. Where did that money come from in those early days? I mean, you don't have to, as much as you want to tell us, Dylan.
Yeah. Well, look, it's actually quite simple. There's not a huge story there. We saved up $10,000 each from our jobs, and the initial investment for Happy Cinco was only $20,000. So we put that money into the business, mainly on stock. A little bit of money went to building the website, registering the business, all those sorts of fees that go along with that. And then the last bit of money we spent was shooting some content so we could launch the business. And that stock we ordered 110 units, our first batch. 10 of them were set aside to send out for marketing purposes, and the other 100 we wanted to sell. We didn't know if it would take a week, if it would take a month, if it would take a year. And we ended up selling that first batch within the first 3 or 4 days.
Oh my goodness. So how do you find customers? I guess they're finding you now, but what is your marketing strategy? How do you know who they are? You've mentioned that it's that 20 to 30-year-old who are time restricted, don't want to spend the money going back every time. But where are your customers?
Yeah, well, look, the way we think about it is, where is everybody's attention today? Obviously, a lot of it is on social media. If you're watching TV and an ad comes on, what do? You grab your phone and you don't really pay attention to the TV. You flick through Instagram or you flick through Facebook, and then you're in the car and the radio comes on and it's an ad. What do? You change the station. So we just thought, where are people actually paying attention these days? Social media. And again, most of our customers are probably in that 18 to 30 range. But that being said, the mums are absolutely loving our product, because who has less time than mums? No one. They don't want to waste money on silly things. They definitely struggle for time to go into a clinic, especially if they have to pick up kids from school or babysit. So the mum demographic is someone who's really embraced our product, probably more than any other.
Fantastic. I'm going to ask a question, because the hair that you're removing, some of it's more public than others. In terms of, when it comes to Instagram, I guess, we'll all have to jump on and see what you're doing. Is that a deliberate strategy? Do you have somebody that just takes care of your Instagram and posts fantastic images and, talks to your product?
Yes, we do. We work with a lot of people, actually. We only want to work with people who have the same sort of values as us as a company, because again, if we want to work with someone, we don't just want it to be send them a product, do a one-off product placement. We want to work with someone long-term. We want them to really use the product and to really love the experience. And if they are using it, if they truly do love it, they're the best ambassador for the product and for the business. So we do work with a lot of people on social media, predominantly Instagram, influencers, if you want to call them that. But that is a big part of our marketing strategy. Yes.
Yeah, it's a huge part these days, isn't it? Thank you.
Sure.
Now, Dylan, money, because we love money, and there's $12 million there, so that's clearly a lot of handsets and home kits. How did you choose your pricing strategy? That first 100, how did you know how much to charge for them, and has that changed over time?
Well, look, we looked at what very limited options there were in retail stores. There wasn't a whole lot, and it wasn't exactly what we were doing, but that was our first kind of gauge as to approximate price ranges. And then what we wanted to do, we wanted to make sure this was accessible to a lot more people than it currently was. If you're paying if you're going to clinics to get your laser hair removal sessions done, depending on how many body parts you're getting, it can cost you up to, $200-$300 per session. And then you have to go back for months and months and months. So we wanted to make sure it was something that was going to be affordable for a lot of people. But obviously that allowed us to put in the money to make it a quality product as well.
So it's so important, isn't it? All those considerations. Have you changed the price since the beginning?
We haven't. It turns out the price point that we picked, it was quite accurate. We did a good job with that. I don't think there's any plans to change any price points moving forward. I think we priced it correctly from the start.
And in terms of viability of the business, it's holding up. So because you do hear people making a lot of money but actually not having much profit. And a physical product, it's a serious consideration, and especially as you start to add warehousing and more staff, and it really that getting that right is so important in business, isn't it?
For sure, okay. Especially as we grow.
Yes, because you can kind of trip yourself up along the way, can't you? Yeah. So exit strategy, you don't have to tell us what it is, but is it something that's that you've considered yet, or?
Look, we never came into this with an exit strategy or a plan to sell the business. At the moment, I'm having a lot of fun with what I'm doing. We have a lot of plans that are already in place for the next couple of years. At the moment, my focus is on growing the business and scaling it as much as we can. We recently, our US numbers have actually overtaken our Australian numbers, which at the start, Australia was just, 90% of our sales. And now the US is actually outperforming Australia. We're growing in the UK and Europe and places like Canada. So at the moment, no exit strategy in place. I really just want to run with this and have as much fun as we can and build something big.
Fantastic. Love to hear that. And who knows what'll happen. Dylan, the magic wand question. If you could wave that magic wand and go back to the beginning and do something, what would be something you might do differently?
Honestly, there wouldn't be a whole lot that I would do differently. To be honest, what we did got us here. There would be things looking back that I would have done earlier, like made the decision to bring on certain new team members, to invest more heavily in content. But one thing I suppose I would probably say to myself is just to prepare myself for the amount of competitors that we're going to come, and they come from all directions, and it's not always fair what they do. Like people who you might think are your friends and are asking you questions because they're interested in your business might actually have other intentions, and people will not only do a similar product, but will do everything they can to mimic your branding and try and pass off as you. So I know that obviously if you're in business and you have a successful business model, those sorts of things are going to happen. I think I was probably just a little bit naive as to how aggressive it would be and how many competitors would pop up that quickly, I suppose.
Yeah. It is amazing, isn't it? I remember meeting someone and their entire website was completely copied. Completely. Word for word, picture for picture, the whole thing. Slightly different name of the business, but the exact same. It was a service offering to do with the wedding industry, and it was absolutely duplicate. She couldn't believe that somebody could do that. So we go into business because, and maybe we are a bit naive, but it's part of your values and it's part of what makes you who you are. So Dylan, it sounds like you're doing the right thing anyway. And if those people, if that's how they are, that's just how they are. But it is an important point, isn't it? Is to just be clear that people can copy you very, very quickly. And a product in today's world, there's people everywhere that can copy it immediately. Yeah. So this is a little bit different. Is it? And I guess you have answered it, but is there anything else you wish you'd known from the start? Is it, so you've talked about hiring people earlier. You've talked about maybe being a little bit less willing to answer questions, or, you sort of talked about being naive. Is there anything else in that whole kind of back to the beginning? Because the reason I ask is that the people listening, is what can they watch out for?
One thing I'll just say, I think we did a really good job with this. But one thing I would say to people who are starting off, there's going to be moments where problems come up or things get really difficult and you want to go to bed or you want to stop working or you want to kind of give up. I would just say, don't give in to those urges, because they're going to come, and there's going to be points where you're a little bit over it and you're tired, but you will get through it for sure.
Okay, thank you. That's a fantastic, because it is, you just want to get into bed and pull the doona up over your head, don't you?
Yeah.
So we can't do everything ourselves. You're building a team. You mentioned in our pre-chat, about lawyers and accountants and people that have helped you. Do you have a coach or a mentor? Who else really helps you? Who's been of greatest assistance? I mean, you went into business with a partner, so that's quite helpful as well.
Yeah. Obviously, the team that we built are the biggest influences on how we go. And I suppose just in the world we live in, there is so much so many resources out there that you can access yourself. So before I launched, not just while I was building Happy Skin Co, but in the years leading up to it, before I even knew that Happy Skin Co was going to happen, I was constantly listening to podcasts, constantly reading books. There is so much content on YouTube that you can consume about anything, whether it's business skills or personal development. There are a lot of resources out there. I suppose probably one name that would have had the biggest impact on how I lived my life and what I did in business would probably be Gary Vee. Obviously, he's a big name in the business world, but a lot of the things that he says, I really understood and agreed with, and I've put that into action with how I live my life, and I think that's helped a lot. But there's so many different options out there. Just self-teach. There's so much that you can consume for sure.
Like podcasts like this and wonderful guests like you coming and sharing your information. Thank you so much for that. Feedback.
No, that's okay.
Feedback. Who gives you feedback?
A lot of people give you feedback. I suppose the only ones that truly matter is the market. What are your customers saying? How are they speaking about the brand? How are they communicating with you? You're going to get a lot of people if you start business that are going to tell you, hey, you should do this, don't do that, this looks better. I would say trust your gut. But the one group you have to listen to is you have to listen to your customers, otherwise you won't have them for very long.
Yeah, absolutely. They're the number one feedback channel, aren't they?
Yeah.
So just as we come towards the end, you've given so much wisdom and you've answered this question, but if someone comes to you, and I'm sure you're getting lots of people coming to you now saying, I'm thinking about starting a business. What do you say to someone? What do you tell or suggest to someone starting out on their own?
The biggest thing is, and I feel like one of my biggest strengths, I feel like it all starts with self-belief, because if you really have that self-belief, it's a lot easier to push yourself in the moments when you don't want to. One of the biggest issues that I find with people that come to me saying they're starting a business or they've got this really cool idea is they're where I was a year ago. So they're working a full-time job and you wake up at 6, 7 a.m. and then you go to work your job all day, you get home 6, 7 p.m. and then you're exhausted. You don't really want to do any more work. I suppose, and it can sound a little bit harsh, but if you don't put in that work from 7 p.m. to midnight for the next 6 months, 3 months, year, whatever it takes, you're going to have to wake up and go to work every day for the rest of your life. So that's really the biggest thing. That's really, and it sounds hard, you have to do it.
That's that lovely expression. I don't know who said it or if where it came from, but it's like, do what you have to for the next 5 years and you can do what no one else can for the next, whatever it is. That one that says do it now and then you don't have to later. So
I love that.
Yeah, me too. So I love that, from 7 till midnight, just do the work for 6 months and then, So you've talked about that self-belief as one of your strengths, your characteristics. What are two others? Because I always ask the 3 characteristics. So what else?
Sure. I think the other one, or one of them, probably one that I'm most proud of in terms of who I've become as a person from where I started, as a teenager, is work ethic. It links back into what we're just chatting about. But there's one, you can't necessarily control how smart you are. You can't control the environment you were born in. You can't control if your parents had money and had the knowledge to support you. But there's one thing that you can do. You can work harder than anyone else if you want to. No one's stopping you. If you want to work as hard as you can, you can do it. Nobody's going to stop you. And I suppose through school, I didn't necessarily have that attitude. I'd do what it took to get good marks, but I never really started pushing myself until probably maybe early 20s when I started growing up a little bit, started understanding myself and what I wanted to achieve. But just work hard. That's it. Like, there's no getting around it. Like, we've been very lucky to get where we are. But none of it would have happened if we didn't work hard. So that would be the second one. And the third one that I think is very important, and I think it maybe does scare a little bit of people off, but you can't be afraid to take risks. Like, leaving a full-time job after 2 weeks was pretty, like, it's a pretty scary thing. But if I didn't do that, like, the business wouldn't have ended up where it is today. So you can't be afraid to take risks, and you can't be afraid to fail. We were lucky. The business we started ended up doing really well, and it was the first one that we started. But again, it's not always going to happen the first time, in the first week, in the first day, like it did for us. But you really have to be resilient as well.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, you absolutely right place, right time, right idea. How did your workplace feel when you told them that you were quitting?
They were all really excited for me, to be honest. They were all really excited, for sure. Again, I think some people in the back of their minds, they wouldn't say it, but are like, well, it's been like 2 weeks and you're going to leave a full-time job. Not everyone is super okay with taking those risks. But like we spoke about earlier, for me, it really honestly wasn't a risk, because I knew this is what I had to do. It would have been a risk for me to stay in a full-time job and work in a place that I wasn't happy. That was the risk for me. Yeah.
I love that. That is actually, that sums it up, doesn't it, really? The risk is to stay somewhere that you're unhappy and it's not fulfilling what you really want to do. So, yeah. Dylan, thank you so much. I know this has been packed. I'm going to straight back and listen to the whole thing again, because I actually love listening to my own guests' podcast interviews.
Yeah.
Anything else that you would like to add? We can find you at...
Yes, so it's Happy Skin Co, all one word, .com. And on Instagram and Facebook, it's all at Happy Skin Co. So that's where we are.
There's plenty of information on the websites and things. So if people are curious about how this all works, they can go have a good look at it and see. Totally.
For sure. The easiest place to find us, if you can't find our website, is just go onto Instagram. That's where all the magic happens. That's where our biggest community is. So a lot of people are messaging us on Instagram every day. That's where we have a really engaged community. So a lot of people will find us through there if you can't get to the website.
Yeah. And more than half this audience of this particular podcast is actually in the US. So for the customers in the US, there's a complete operation there that takes care of their orders. So it's not coming from Australia. There's something happening over there. Because you said that was growing at about Stripped Australia.
Yeah. So at the moment, all of our orders are still sent from our warehouse in Australia. Obviously, that costs us more money to send to them. However, we don't charge the customers more than we charge our Australian customers. They pay the same. But that is actually something we're looking at as we've grown so much in the US. We're going to set up an operation over there. I'm actually going to head over to the States in a couple of months just to kind of feel everything out and have a little bit of a look around. Again, we may even open up offices in the US early next year. That's definitely something we've been considering. And just personally, I wouldn't mind spending a little bit of time in the US. I think it would be fun. So that's definitely on the cards moving forward.
Fantastic. Dylan, thank you so much. Anything else you want to say before we finish? Shall we?
Look, just to probably make it really clear, if you believe in yourself and you work hard, you'll be surprised how life starts figuring itself out for you. You really can make your dreams come true if you're willing to work for it. That's all I want to say. And that's become really clear for me over the last year. Obviously, it obviously gets easier to believe as things start happening. But now looking back, I wished I had this belief before, because I know what is possible.
That's lovely. Thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for listening. How many of us are thinking, why did we not think of this? So there's some interesting points in the interview apart from the wish I'd thought of it. So Dylan spoke about a market they hadn't thought about, and this can happen in a business, that you start off with an ideal market and then another ideal marketplace or an ideal market client group can emerge as the product or service comes to market. They knew that the 18 to 30-year-old female market would be strong for them. And then as they got started, they found a new really strong market, which was the mums, because they're equally time poor and, just want to be able to use the product. So we know a client avatar is super important, and it's always important to be listening out for clients and customers to what they're saying and who are potentially other clients. Sounds like they got their pricing right to start with, and they haven't changed their pricing. And the only feedback that really matters is the market, is the customers, as he says. If you're not listening to them, there is no business. So what are you taking away from this conversation? What's one really strong standout for you? You might want to scroll back and listen. I particularly love towards the end there where he says that he really does wish that he had more faith in himself. He says, if you believe in yourself and you're prepared to do the work and work hard, you'd be surprised how life starts figuring itself out for you. You truly can make your dreams come true if you're prepared to work for it. And he went on to say, the thing is, it gets easier to believe when things start happening. And he really wishes he'd believed that a year ago. Isn't that amazing? That even with the success he's had, he wished he'd had more faith in himself. Anyway, what he had to say about competition and the people he trusted, that was also particularly interesting. He was surprised how quickly his product had been copied. There's a ton of gold, as I said in the intro. So if you're keen, just go back and have another listen and see what you can take away from this interview. For everyone listening, whether this is your first episode or you've been with us for some time, I truly believe whatever you're dreaming about can become real. These podcasts are designed to inspire, educate, and inform about what it takes to start, create, and grow a business of your own. We truly believe these podcast interviews provide value, and terrific value at that. And if you agree, please leave your comments, rate the podcast over on iTunes. We know it all helps with spreading the show with more people. Thank you. What questions do you have? How can I help you? Have you read the book? If you need any help or have a question, please email me, ingrid@healthynumbers.com.au. I reply directly. I answer all my own email questions because I know it's important for you to have what you need. Anyway, as we always say, ideas without action, well, that's just what they are, ideas. What action are you inspired to take today? Till the next time, thanks for listening.